Lore Listening Library, Volume 17, Fire Emblem, 3 Houses. The Book of Seiros, Part 1. The Revelation. The goddess is all things. She is the heaven above and the land below. She is eternity incarnate. She is the present, the past, and the future. Her eyes see all, her ears hear all, her hands receive all. She who was graced with the holy word of the divine goddess, who bore witness to her magnificence, is the one called Seiros. She is the messenger of the heavens, the bridge between the lands above and below, and her blessings shall bring tidings of peace to all. With the goddess's omnipotence and wisdom to guide her, Seiros ensures that her will be done. As the goddess's sword, Seiros wards away evil. As the goddess's child, Seiros makes emperors of mortals. As the goddess's wings, Seiros elevates her people. As the goddess's voice, Seiros spreads the word of love. That sublime sword is entrusted to you. Those emperors are crowned before you. Those wings clear your path. That voice whispers words of trust. May the blessings of the goddess follow you always. The Book of Seiros, Part 2. The Creation. In the beginning, amid the great cloudless ocean, Fodlan came to be. At the end of a long journey, the goddess glimpsed that land and there alighted. Upon that sacred ground, she breathed life into the world and created all of the creatures upon it. By the goddess's hand, plants took root, birds took to the sky, and animals roamed the land. Last of all, she created humanity. When the humans wished for power, she granted it. She gifted them with the blessings of the heavens and of the earth. By way of the magical arts, humanity attained great power, yet unaware that great power portends great evil. By the grace of the goddess's divine protection, humanity thrived. Through her blessings, they grew prosperous and their numbers rose. Before long, they became the most powerful creatures in all of Fodlan. All was well until darkness descended from the north, a darkness that devoured the earth, desecrated the heavens, and they threw the world and its inhabitants into a state of chaos. To face this evil force, the goddess created a new well of power. She gifted certain chosen individuals with sacred blood, allowing them to wield mystical weapons, that they may prevail against the darkness. These souls, buoyed by their divine gifts, conquered the evil ones and drove them back to the north. They came to be known as heroes. The heroes experienced unnaturally long lives, persisting for hundreds of years. Even after they breathed their last, the power coursing through their blood remained, leaving an indelible mark upon this world. This power, passed through bloodlines, came to be known as the Cress. The mystical weapons they once wielded are now called the heroes' relics. And so the legend of a new age was born. The descendants of the heroes sought their ancestors' power, and thusly their blood. In time they amassed crests, relics, land, and wealth, using all to set the land aflame with war. The goddess's power, intended to stem the flow of evil, became a tool of destruction. All because of the greed of humanity. The goddess grieved and, heartbroken, hid herself in the heavens from whence she came. The Book of Saros, Part 5. The 5 Eternal Commandments. Dare not doubt or deny the power or existence of the goddess. Dare not speak the goddess's name in vain. Dare not disrespect your father, mother, or any who serve the goddess. Do not abuse the power gifted to you by the goddess. Dare not kill, harm, lie, or steal unless such acts are committed by the will of the goddess. The goddess cares for and protects all that is beautiful in this world. The goddess will never deny the splendors of love, affection, joy, peace, faith, kindness, temperance, modesty, or patience. Follow her example and, in doing so, abide her laws. The History of Fodlan, Part 1. Under the tyranny of ruthless disorder, the people endured a long period of suffering. The vile Nemesis, who proclaimed himself the king of liberation, delighted in war and bloodshed. Rather than rebelling against his persecution, the people of Fodlan fell to his depths in a mad scramble to attain power through murder and theft. 41 years before the founding of the Adrestian Empire, Saint Saros appeared in the land of Enbar and, through the many unfathomable miracles she performed, spread light across the land. In doing so, she joined the shattered hearts of the purest people of Fodlan, who went on to form the Holy Church of Saros. Imperial Year 1, the founding of the Adrestian Empire. In the first year of our calendar, the glorious Adrestian Empire was founded. Its name was gifted by an oracle, and its future blessed by the goddess. Its capital, Enbar, was chosen to govern the southern reaches of Fodlan, where the divine Saint Saros also lent her power. Imperial Year 32, the War of Heroes. Wilhelm Paul Hresvelg, the inaugural Agrestian emperor, raised an army in pursuit of the unification of Fodlan. With his might, he hunted and destroyed any house's territory that dared seek more power. Imperial Year 46, the Battle of Gronder. An intense battle erupted on Gronder Field, where the houses that were allied with Nemesis and the imperial forces of the Adrestian Empire clashed. There, the imperial forces emerged victorious. Imperial Year 91, the Battle of Teltine. The houses that were allied with Nemesis once again faced off against the imperial forces, this time at Teltine Plains. There, the evil Nemesis finally fell, and the Empire secured a momentous victory. Imperial Year 98, the War of Heroes End. The successor of great Emperor Wilhelm I, Lycaon I, succumbed to sudden illness. The Empire, which ruled over the majority of Fodlan, took this opportunity to put an end to the seemingly endless fighting. The History of Fodlan, Part 2. Imperial Year 721, the First Mock War. The Dagdan army invaded from across the sea. Though the imperial forces resisted the attack and drove off the enemy, the land of Mock sustained considerable damage. Imperial Year 728, the Invasion of Brigid. The Empire invaded the Brigid archipelago, a land occupied by allies of Dagda. As penance for their refusal to surrender, the people of Brigid were relegated to a life of imperial subjugation. Imperial Year 731, the Invasion of Dagda. With the boon of a strong foothold in Brigid, the Empire mounted a large-scale invasion of Dagda. However, the fortunes of war were not on their side, and their attack failed. Imperial year 747, the Fargus Rebellion. Lug, a descendant of one of the heroes that first quarreled with the Empire, raised an army to demand independence, pulling the land of Fargus into a fierce rebellion. This clash came to be known as the War of the Eagle and Lion. Imperial year 751, the founding of the Holy Kingdom of Fargus. Lug and his resistance army were victorious over the Imperial forces. The Holy Church of Saros mediated between the two, and Fargus secured its hard-won independence as the Holy Kingdom of Fargus. Imperial year 801, the Leicester Rebellion. A rebellion broke out in the imperial lands of Leicester, which the imperial army was unable to suppress. The Holy Kingdom, viewing the uprising as an opportunity to increase its own political sway, occupied the Leicester region, formally declaring it as a territory of Fargus. Imperial year 861, Fargus divided. Following the death of King Claus I, 3 princes became archdukes and split the Holy Kingdom of Fargus, that they may rule over it as 3 separate territories. Imperial year 881, the Crescent Moon War. The Archduke ruling over the Leicester region of the kingdom succumbed to illness. The lords of the Leicester lands refused to acknowledge the next Archduke in line, instead plotting to rule jointly as an alliance. Imperial year 901, the founding of the Leicester Alliance. The Leicester Alliance was officially formed after the subjugation of hostile nobles and the removal of all opposing forces in the regions of Fargus. An influential figure from the outset, Duke Regan was inarguably the heart of the newly formed alliance. Imperial year 961, the Almiran invasion. The great eastern nation of Almira crossed through Fodlan's throat and invaded the Alliance territory. The Empire dispatched troops in order to help conquer this threat, and the attackers were just barely driven off. Imperial year 1101, the construction of Fodlan's Locket. To defend against future Almiran invasions, the Alliance, the Kingdom, and the Empire joined their efforts and resources to construct the indomitable fort known as Fodlan's Locket. Traveler's Journal, Issue 1. A record consisting largely of the world outside of Fodlan. The author's identity is unknown, but they have clearly experienced these places firsthand. Almira, a great kingdom to the east of Fodlan. Its territories borders that of the Leicester Alliance, with the precipitous mountain range known as Fodlan's Throat acting as the dividing line. Its people maintain a strong legacy of horsemanship and relish in the thrill of battle. This vast kingdom is rich in fertile prairies, deserts, and mountain ranges. Albania, a continent to the northwest of Fodlan. Its frigid climate is home to numerous rare and valuable species of flora and fauna. However, the human population there is extremely small due to the intense cold and the frozen earth, which is unsuitable for growing grains or other food crop. Morphis. Morphis is the name of a metropolis of magic to the south of Fodlan, as well as the boundless desert that surrounds it. In the distant past, it was called the City of Illusion. Thanks to an intricate web of trading routes, rumor of its profound and mysterious magi continue to spread. Dagda, a continent of the southwest of Fodlan. Due to its extreme distance from Fodlan, rumors of this relatively unknown world abound. Some claim it's a tropical rainforest, while others insist it's merely a giant frozen plateau. In truth, this vast continent stretches far into the north and south and supports a wide variety of terrain and climates. Traveler's Journal, Issue 2. A record consisting largely of the world outside of Fodlan. The author's identity is unknown, but they have clearly experienced these places firsthand. Brigid, an archipelago nested between Fodlan and Dagda. It is a land of plenty that is often heralded as the perfect union of the gentle sea and nature's bounty. Both Fodlan and Dagda have long vied to claim this territory as their own. Srang. Srang was once the name of an enormous peninsula to the north of Fodlan. Today, only the northern half has kept the moniker, while the southern half now falls under the dominion of the Kingdom of Fargus. Several warlike clans call this great wasteland their home. Certain areas of this region are comprised of rocky desert. Dusker, a peninsula to the north of Fodlan and the west of Srang. The people who once inhabited this land were decimated, and now falls under the dominion of the Holy Kingdom of Fargus. The land boasts nothing noteworthy to make it a desirable travel destination, but rumors of valuable minerals waiting to be unearthed abound. Ogma Mountains, an enormous mountain range somewhat south of central Fodlan. To the west, it forms the border between the Empire and the Kingdom, surrounding Garrikmach and cutting across Empire territory. It is home to many animals and plants that cannot be found elsewhere, as well as a plethora of valuable mineral deposits. Register of Empire Nobles, Part 1. A register of prominent noble houses of the Adrastian Empire. This document is expressly for official use by the Church of Seros. Students are forbidden to remove or peruse this documentation. 1179 edition. House Reskvelg, the most distinguished noble house of the Empire, tracing its roots all the way back to the great Emperor Wilhelm. It has been the governing house of the Empire for 1,100 years. In addition to the first emperor, its lineage is also traced back to Saint Seros herself, which is why generations of emperors are believed to bear the crest of Seros. House Reskvelg resides in Enbar, the imperial capital, claiming all of the surrounding territory as its domain. It boasted supreme authority both within the empire and without, until insurrection of the Seven in 1171, in which much of its power was stripped away by the nobility. In recent years, a series of misfortunes have plagued this storied house, and some believe dark clouds hover over the future of the Reskvelg reign. House Eyre, a house of dukes possessing great power within the empire, second only to House Reskvelg. The head of the house came to occupy the post of prime minister, rendering the title a hereditary one thereafter. House Eyre led the insurrection of the Seven, and, in many ways, holds the true power governing the empire. House Vestra, a house of marquises without domain, existing in the shadow of House Reskvelg. In addition to managing the darker tasks of the empire, it is responsible for the emperor's periphery affairs, including coordinating things such as ceremonies and rituals, imperial consorts, and the imperial guard. House Vestra was allied with House Eyre in the insurrection. House Hevering, a house of counts that has inherited rule over the empire's domestic affairs, particularly those relating to administration, finance, and the judiciary. It frequently clashes with the Minister of Military Affairs over these matters. Much of its territory lies in the Ogma Mountains, and as such it enjoys the fruits of a lucrative mining industry. House Burgleys, a house of counts that has inherited rule over the Empire's Ministry of Military Affairs. It commands all of the armies that do not directly belong to the Emperor. During times of war, the head of the house becomes the Imperial Army's commander-in-chief. Their territory encompasses most of the Empire's main breadbasket, Gronder Field. House Varley, a house of counts that has inherited rule over the Empire's Ministry of Religion, whose main responsibility is to maintain amiable relations with the Church of Saros. However, due to the estrangement of the Church from the Empire in recent years, it is now more involved with the judiciary, causing political strife with the Minister of the Interior. Register of Empire Nobles, Part 2. A register of prominent noble houses of the Adrastian Empire. This document is expressly for official use by the Church of Saros. Students are forbidden to remove or peruse this documentation. 1179 edition. House Gek, a house of dukes that has inherited rule over the Empire's Ministry of the Exterior. Diplomacy, foreign relations, and relations with various provinces and the capital fall under its purview. It worked hard to secure the ceasefires that ended both the Brigid and Dagda campaigns. Though complicit in the insurrection, it remains distant from associated houses. House Arundel, formerly a minor noble house of the Empire, as head of the house, when Volkard's younger sister became betrothed to the Emperor Ionius IX, Volkard was granted the title of Lord Arundel. Having worked closely with House Eyre, House Arundel is seen as one of the chief instigators of the Insurrection of the Seven. House Grimm, a house of imperial viscounts. Resisting Emperor Ionius IX's policy of power centralization, it set out to join the alliance and secure independence from the Empire, but was unable to overcome the Imperial Army's intervention. In the aftermath, the house's main genetic line was wiped out. Its current head of house is an adoptee. House Nouvelle, a house of imperial viscounts with territory on the western coast of the Empire, centered around its namesake harbor city Nivelle. The house flourished thanks to commerce with Dagda, Albania, Brigid, and other territories. Even still, it fell to ruin in 1175 after permitting the combined invading forces of Dagda and Brigid armies to make landfall. House Ox, a house of imperial barons. Its territory occupied the northern half of the western peninsula, known as Fodlan's Fangs. The head of the house was lost to the Dagda and Brigid War. House Bartels, a house of imperial barons, highly ambitious, sought out and acquired several quests for its bloodline. In 1176, many members, including the head of house, died under unexplained circumstances. The deed was attributed to the heir, Emil. As his whereabouts are unknown, leadership of the house fell to a distant relative. Register of Kingdom Nobles, a register of prominent noble houses of the Holy Kingdom of Fargus. This document is expressly for official use by the Church of Saros. Students are forbidden to remove or peruse this documentation. 1179 edition. House Blaethid. This house claims Blaethid of the 10 elites as its ancestor. It has ruled over the kingdom for over 400 years, ever since Lugh, the King of Lions, claimed victory in the War of the Eagle and Lion in 751. This secured the kingdom's independence from the Adrastian Empire, after which Lugh was crowned as its inaugural king by the Church of Saros. House Blathid resides in Ferdiad, the kingdom capital, claiming all of the surrounding territory as its domain and many of the fiefdoms in the north of Fodlan as its vassals. With the passing of King Lambert in 1176, his older brother, Grand Duke Rufus of Etha, assumed the burden of ruling the kingdom in the young crown prince's stead. Even still, strife and disorder continue to plague the land. House Frodarius. This house of dukes claims Frodarius of the 10 Elites as its ancestor. It is one of the most ancient houses on record, even amongst kingdom nobility. It is said that Caifun, the sworn friend of Lugh, the king of lions, was also related to the hero Frodarius. House Gautier. This house of Margraves claims Gautier of the 10 Elites as its ancestor. Its territory lies in the northernmost reaches of the kingdom. As such, it has safeguarded kingdom territory against insurrections by the people of the Serang region for over 200 years. House Karen. This house of counts claims Karen of the 10 Elites as its ancestor. Tasked with negotiating between the resistance armies and the Church of Saros during the War of the Eagle and Lion, the head of House Karen continues the tradition of a ceremonial competition within the kingdom. House Galatea. When House Daphnel, once a cornerstone of the Leicester Alliance, was divided in two over an inheritance feud, half of them defected to Fargus and established House Galatea, which was granted the noble title of Count. Much of its territory consists of a frigid wasteland where a severe famine occurred in the early 1170s. House Rowe. A noble house that once held territory in the Northern Empire. When the fortress city of Aryan Road was constructed within its domain, it revolted against the Empire and pledged the entirety of its territory, including Aryan Road, to the Holy Kingdom of Fargus. For this contribution, it was awarded the noble title of Count. House Clareman. This house originally held no more than a lordship over a single castle in the west of the kingdom, but it was awarded the noble title of Viscount for its great success in the subjugation of the Dusker region in 1176. Afterwards, it was granted the Dusker region as its feudal estate. Register of Alliance Nobles. A register of prominent noble houses of the Leicester Alliance. This document is expressly for official use by the Church of Saros. Students are forbidden to remove or peruse this documentation. 1179 edition. House Regan. The leading house of the Leicester Alliance and descendants of one of the 10 Elites. In the Crescent Moon War of 881, they spearheaded the move towards independence from the kingdom, as well as the establishment of a republic by its former vassals. They have held the esteemed responsibility of leading the Alliance Round Table ever since. The position of this House of Dukes relies on the noble rank bestowed upon it by the kingdom, well before the Alliance's founding. The current Duke Regan's heir, Godfrey, died in an accident while on duty. While he did leave behind a surviving daughter, she is presently unaccounted for. House Goneril. Descendants of one of the 10 Elites. It is a military house that is chiefly tasked with military strikes and defense against the Elmiran army, mostly due to its territory position in the east. Lord Holst, the next head of the house, is widely renowned as the Alliance's bravest general. House Ordelia. A house of counts with land in the east of Leicester territory. In 1167, it was involved in House Hrim's rebellion, and the Empire retaliated by repeatedly meddling in the house's internal affairs, leading to a sharp decline in its noble standing. House Gloucester. Descendants of one of the 10 Elites, this House of Counts hails from the Southern Leicester Territory. The current head of house is ambitious, excels in public relations, and has an influential voice among the 5 noble families with voting rights at the Leicester Alliance Round Table, second only to House Regan. House Edmund, a house of margraves with land in the north of Leicester Territory. Its beneficial trade policies, emphasizing fair use of its personal harbors, have awarded the house a great deal of clout, to such a degree that it was eventually accepted into the ranks of the 5 great lords of the Alliance. Their current head of house is a renowned orator. House Daffnel, descendants of one of the 10 elites and formerly among the 5 great lords of the Alliance. It lost much power due to internal discord. For the last several generations, no head of House Daffnel has borne a crest. In spite of this, it still maintains its status as a noble family. Letter to a mysterious noble. My beloved, you're right. It seems he would not hesitate to divide the house. What's more, I hear he's considering taking his half of the territory and joining the kingdom. I can't believe he would even consider dragging another region into this, not to mention stirring up trouble over his inheritance at a time when the Alliance desperately needs to unite. He's clearly out of his mind. Though he bears a major crest and you a minor crest, your father was wise in his attempt to declare you his heir. As it were, I can't help but wonder what your intentions with me are. I am drowning in letters proposing marriage to that beast. He may share your face, but the resemblance ends there. I refuse to marry such a foul creature. If you don't come to me soon, I'm going to you. Don't forget that my father's blessing could be revoked at any moment. I will depart Deirdre at the end of the lone moon. You had better be prepared for my arrival. I wish to marry you beneath the garland moon. Why? Well, I am a woman after all, and even I harbor dreams of being a garland bride. Understood? Great. Make it so. Claudia, second daughter of House Regan. An antiquated note. A scrap of paper is stuck between the pages of a book. It appears to be incredibly old. Moose meat. Albanian moose is preferable. If unavailable, beef or horse meat may be substituted, though dish's unique flavor will be somewhat altered. Goddess messenger. Be sure to skin, gut, and clean the fish before use. Xanadu treasure fruit. While difficult to obtain, it is well worth the effort. If necessary, boa fruit may be substituted. Seasoning and spices. Adrastian rock salt, herbs of Fargus, and honey of Leicester are strongly recommended. This is a special dish prepared for the new emperor at ceremonies. Though its ingredients are extremely rare, making it rather expensive, chefs must restrain themselves from sneaking bites during preparation. A feast of decadence. The seventh song. Banquet celebrating the marriage of the young Emperor Lycaon III continued until the full moon waned to a half moon. The waitstaff scurried about the castle refilling golden glasses. All present savored the taste of the fine Bacchus from Boremas, as well as the screams of the northern swordsmen as they were torn apart by wild beasts during the countless dishes on the banquet tables were each overflowing with spectacular offerings. Treats themed after the 4 saints graced massive platters, just waiting for our greedy fingers to snatch them up. In honor of Saint Keyhole, guardian of the land, prime Grandeur wheat was used to bake endless loaves of delectable bread. In honor of Saint Cethline, savory fish was presented, a dish she is believed to have loved. When the clown dressed as Saint Seros decapitated the criminal dressed as Nemesis with a single swing, The spectators cheered with unbridled enthusiasm. A young man, starring as Emperor Wilhelm, as he caught the saint and pulled her into a close embrace, suddenly beckoned me. He pressed his lips to my ear and whispered Saint Nothings, mirroring Emperor Wilhelm and Saint Seros upon the stage. The date of removal and Sedith's signature follow. It appears to be a novel set in the Adrestian Empire. It has sustained great damage, so nothing else is legible. Words of Love. Table of Contents. How to compliment a lover. The art of seduction. The myth of true love's singularity. Gifting Saint Cethlene's love garland. Alone time and greeting the dawn. The date of removal and Sedith's signature follow. It seems this was briefly part of the monastery's library, but all pages are missing, save the table of contents. Burnt remnants of a report. Burned pages that resemble a report of some sort. A few pages survived the fire and are still legible. Item 18, Part 5. The Fargus Rebellion. I harbor doubts about the army Lug has raised. How did he recruit soldiers without raising suspicions in the Empire? How did he acquire those mysterious weapons, so like heroes' relics? What is the true identity of Pan, the tactician rumored to have been integral to Lug's victories? And those who slither in the dark. Item 22, Part 2. The shadowed order of the Knights of Seros believed that King Klaus I of Fargus was assassinated. Everyone believes that his will, which demands the territory be divided among the three princes and fails to name a successor, is fake. The purpose was likely to involve the Leicester region and display a greater military force than the Empire. Item 49, Part 18. The Tragedy of Dusker, after which more members of the Western Church are strongly criticizing the Central Church. Among them are those who claim the incident in Dusker was the work of the shadowed order of the Knights of Seros. It seems a confrontation over the dogma's legitimacy is inevitable. Soon, the child of House Gaspard. Item 51, Part 6. Son of the Alliance's leader, Duke Oswald Regan, has died in an accident. This follows an incident involving the previous successor, and even the Knights of Seros suspect it was at Count Gloucester's command, though it seems too conspicuous. There is some concern that this could spark a war. With Duke Regan gravely ill, the situation is... Encyclopedia of Fodlan's Insects. This book's title does not match its contents, suggesting a false cover. It seems to be a catalog of some kind. Distance viewer, based on glasses. By combining glasses lenses, one can view great distances with enhanced clarity. Crafting such a tool was forbidden by decree of the Archbishop for the following reasons. The ease of locating enemy camps would escalate wartime violence. 2. It would be too easy to snipe from afar. 3. It would lessen the mystery of the goddess who watches from above. Flammable black water. A sticky black liquid was discovered in northern Fargus. It burns fiercely and emits a highly toxic gas. The use of this wicked substance was forbidden by decree of the Archbishop for the following reasons. 1. Misuse could result in accidental death. 2. It could be used tactically by those lacking magical ability. 3. Competition for it could cause strife. Metal mold printing machine. Though initially lauded as a practical replacement for woodblock printing, after careful consideration, the Archbishop deemed it taboo for many reasons, particularly the following. 1. Risk of mass circulation of misinformation and malevolent rumors. 2. It is useless to illiterate commoners. 3. Risk of intensifying discrepancy between church branches. Human autopsies, especially involving head or crest incisions. Though it is widely believed that this is medically relevant, such actions upon a corpse are considered desecration of the dead. Since white magic can be used to a similar end, autopsies were deemed taboo. A notable cardinal asserted that if medical science were to excel over faith-based white magic, it would de-establish the foundation of the church. Romance of the world's perdition. In the land of Thinis, where the old gods are said to live, the false god has awakened. Its looming, heteromorphic vessel was resurrected to sink the world in the depths of the ocean. It will bring extinction to all children of men and salvation to all beasts of the land, sky, and sea. For the children of men who spilled too much of the blood of life, it promises only cruel retribution. The false god must be defeated before the world sinks into a watery grave. To this end, the children of men have erected pillars of light upon this land. Thinis, Malum, Septen, and Liam were utterly destroyed. Those lands were vanished from this world, yet even still the false god stands, and soon a flood aptly named Despair will drown this world. The children of men fled to the depths of the earth, beyond the sight of the false god, beyond the embrace of the sacred sun, and beyond the reach of the waters of despair. They swore a fervent oath of revenge against the surface world, ruled by beasts, and against their tormentor, the false god. The truth of the hero's relics. I, a priest of the findings of my investigation. When a crest stone was removed while its relic was being wielded by all movement within the relic ceased. When the stone was returned, the relic once again. It is beyond question that crest stones supply their associated relic with power of some kind, and the impetus of said power is clearly related to the crests that certain humans possess. Based on the composition of, it can be surmised that likely a massive creature akin to a wyvern. However, strength is beyond compare to that of wyvern bones. They are more durable than all materials other than crucible steel, making them ideal for crafting weaponry and absolutely inhabiting. Difficult to conceive, but one theory. It is possible that the goddesses have potentially heroes' relics have been found that are not linked to the Tenelites. The Tenelites. Could it be that others were gifted this power by the goddess as well? Perhaps the disturbing that the relics were not gifts from the goddess. Additionally, the same crest stones. Many of my hypotheses. I am desperate to find the truth of it all. The time has come. I must discard. I dare say the goddess would not wish for me to learn more than I already have. The pages are old and worn, so most of the text is illegible. Fragments of a Forgotten Memoir. 15 ALL Forest. It has been several months since King Nemesis was defeated, and the tides of war have turned from bad to worse. I have received news that my friend Daphnel has fallen as well. Those zealots are after our heads, and those of our leaders. All that is left for us is to disappear into the muddy waters Saros has created. My long life may soon come to an end. 2. Itha Plains. I somehow escaped with my life, but I fear the end is near. Most of my clan has already surrendered to the Empire. To my surprise, I am told their safety was guaranteed. I, however, am a different matter. My life, along with my sacred weapon, will unquestionably be forfeit. My dear son and daughter, I hope you can forgive me one day. 5. Why does Saros despise us so? What did King Nemesis do to incur such an unwielding wrath? Perhaps it was a mistake to accept his offer. In any case, that is all in the distant past now. And before this body falls to ash, be evil. The paper is so tattered, the rest is illegible. Mysteries of the Calendar, Volume 2. Much time has passed since the imperial calendar was adopted. In the prior calendar, the year began with what we now call the Guardian Moon and ended with the Ethereal Moon. Back then, the 12 lunar phases were exclusively referred to as months. They came to be known as moons with our current calendar system. Though the prior names of the months are lost, it is known that Guardian Moon was often shortened to the number 1, Pegasus Moon to the number 2, and so on until Ethereal Moon, the 12th and final month. Though inelegant, this was a practical system that apparently served the people of the time well. There is no way of knowing when the old calendar was created. Any attempt to trace its origin leads only to the era of the gods and more unanswered questions. All we know for certain is that the calendar has existed for a nearly incomprehensible length of time. To change a civilization's calendar would inevitably cause great confusion and unrest. Why, then, did Emperor Wilhelm, the first leader of Adrestia, choose to abandon the original calendar in favor of the imperial calendar? Historians have identified several possible reasons for such a drastic measure. 1. The influence of the Church of Saros. The names of the imperial calendar's moons and the associated lore behind them are intimately related to the tenets and saints of the Church of Saros. It is highly probable that basing the new calendar on the teachings of Saros was Emperor Wilhelm's attempt to spread those beliefs on a much wider scale and help legitimize the Church. If this is the case, it is further proof that the Adrestian Empire had close ties to the Church of Saros from the very moment of its inception. Alternatively, it has been posited that the goddess herself wished to change the calendar and voiced this desire through the prophet Saros. This would mean that Emperor Wilhelm simply implemented the change rather than originating it. 2. Asserting authority. Calendars represent the flow of time, and so creating a new one is akin to claiming dominion over time itself. Shortly after its founding, the empire used its influence to establish a new calendar and retroactively proclaim its founding as Year 1. Amid the unification of Fodlan, this move increased imperial authority and heralded the start of a new era. And that concludes Lore Listening Library, Volume 17. If there is any sort of video game lore you'd like to hear, be sure to put it in the comments down below. But in the meanwhile, join us next week where we open the volume on the Mass Effect Codex. Until next time.